Lobsters are attracted by strong odors in the water, so they're easily lured and drawn to the aroma of a baited human lobster trap. Getting in is easy. Getting out is another thing. Lobsters have real trouble negotiating an exit. They can do it, but many seem so mesmerized by the reek of the bait, they don't even try. If they linger in the trap, they get hauled aboard the lobsterman's boat. By law, the lobsterman cannot keep immature lobsters called shorts and throws them back. But sometimes, even this act of releasing the lobster can be deadly. Out in the open, the lobster has many enemies, like these striped bass. The lucky ones reach bottom and escape, but not all of them do. The best strategy for survival in the Gulf is to disappear. It looks like there's nothing here, but look again. The flounder uses special skin cells called chromatophores to mimic the bottom and disappear. Rocky or sandy, it makes no difference. The sculpin uses camouflage too. He poses as a moss-covered rock and vanishes. The male lumpfish blends in with the weeds and rocks. Not a strong swimmer, it uses specially modified fins on its belly, like a suction cup, to clamp onto smooth, rocky surfaces. This saves precious energy while the male stands guard duty over his egg nest. No current can dislodge him. His body is a fixed barrier to any predator, including the lobster, seeking to make an easy meal of his eggs. The camouflaged lumpfish blocks the way. The annoyed lobster moves on to seek an easier snack and more hospitable grounds. Lobsters like to disappear too, by hiding. The bottom of the Gulf is ideal for them. All throughout their lives, lobsters spend a lot of time burrowing under rocks into mud and hiding. If hiding isn't possible, lobsters are good at retreating, and in some cases, fleeing. At 10 feet per second, they can put real distance between themselves and any threat. But if all else fails, lobsters will stand and fight. They're born with the instinct to fight off any aggressor. The best way to approach a lobster is from behind. This lone beluga whale is a little south of its range. The row of parallel scars along its back were probably made by an outboard engine propeller. Its tail shows the marks of an entanglement in netting. Today, it seems more interested in teasing the lobster than eating it. The lobster, after trying to escape, turns to fight the 10-foot, half-ton beluga. The beluga appears amused. The lobster is not. Usually, as soon as the lobster has intimidated his opponent, he seizes the first opportunity to flee. Lobsters really prefer to disappear into holes. Dominance is everything in lobster society, particularly for males. Dominant males take the best burrows, the best food, and get the most females. There's a constant shuffling and reshuffling of the lobster pecking order. As they walk across the bottom, lobsters secrete urine and chemicals into the water and fan them around. Any other lobsters in the area getting a whiff can tell a lot about the newcomer and whether they should challenge or get out of the way. When two lobsters of more or less equal size run into each other, and it's not obvious which one is dominant, there's only one way to settle the issue: duke it out. There's a kind of ritual to lobster combat. The idea is to establish who's dominant with a minimum of damage to either individual. At first, they odor blast and antennae whip each other, feeling each other out. If these lobsters have already fought, their individual chemical signals will re-establish the winner's dominance, and they won't fight again. Lobsters remember the outcome of a particular fight for up to a week. But if the pair are strangers and don't recognize each other, they begin with a little pushing and shoving. This can lead to a hold called claw lock. Each lobster has the other's claws in a grip. And after a bit of dancing around, it usually settles dominance disputes. However, if it doesn't, then things can get nasty and violent. The loser can sometimes lose more than just the fight. All of these lobsters are missing claws. This one has lost both. Luckily, there's lots of easy food to scavenge, and they can all still eat. But they're vulnerable without their defenses. The good news is, lobsters can regrow their legs and claws. It costs them, though. Their overall growth slows while they pour all their energy into restoring a lost appendage. The tiny limb bud will become a mighty claw. Antennae and legs are most commonly lost and regrown. The lobster's shell is its armor. Countless knocks, attacks, and abuse bang it up in the course of a year. By the time it's cracked, broken, and covered with barnacles, and the lobster needs a new shell, nature provides one under the old. Lobsters have exoskeletons. That means the hard part, the structural part of their bodies, is on the outside. In order to grow, lobsters must shed their old shells and grow new, larger ones. The older a lobster is, the less often it molts. In the 1 to 5 pound range, it happens about once a year, usually in the warmer months. The carapace splits off, and the lobster slowly pulls itself out of the old shell. Its gills stop beating. If it takes too long to get out, it can suffocate. Their struggle can fatally exhaust lobsters. Sometimes they'll sacrifice claws and legs to get the job done. This is a dangerous time. The lobster looks like his old impregnable self, but he's as soft as wet marshmallow. Exhausted, the lobster immediately begins pumping his limp body full of water. The process takes about 5 hours. His rubbery legs bend under the weight as he tries to move to cover. Soft claws are useless right now. The old shell holds a key ingredient to his survival, and it's his first meal. By eating the old shell, lost minerals are replenished and help the lobster harden faster. Lobsters often bury their old shells. No one knows why for sure. Perhaps it is to hide the evidence of their vulnerability. Whatever the reason, the lobster seems to know it's an easy meal for any predator. Jumpy and nervous, it is continually excavating among the ruins of its old self. Female lobsters most often mate immediately after molting, while their new shells are still soft. Until recently, female lobsters were considered to be loners. A recent discovery has changed that view. A sandy plain has been discovered full of shallow, crater-like depressions, and in almost every one, there's a gravid female. Researchers have found that this kind of nesting ground contains lobsters well over the average size. Measuring, recording, and tagging these individuals helps researchers keep track of this precious wild breeding stock. Almost 90% of all females here are carrying eggs. Remarkably, the ratio of females to males is 4-to-1. The methodical research of lobster behavior has yielded many of their secrets over the past years. Some lobsters seem a bit reluctant to do the yielding. By tagging and studying lobsters here and in other places around the Gulf, the researchers have discovered that lobsters can travel several hundred kilometers during seasonal changes. Some individuals even revisited old study sites. Researchers now suspect that females come into these shallow and warmer waters mainly for reproductive reasons. Any time up to a year after mating, the female extrudes her fertilized eggs. Depending on her size, she'll produce up to 100,000 eggs and carry them for up to another year, tucked and protected under her tail. When the eggs hatch, the female launches her tiny newborn into the water. They're not alone. Suspended and drifting in the currents of the Gulf are masses of other microscopic and nearly microscopic plants and animals called plankton. Hundreds of species, including the newly hatched lobsters, float in the currents and feed on each other. This is the most dangerous time for larval lobsters. Nearly 90% die in the first 2 to 4 weeks of life. Larval finfish, shellfish, and many other marine species begin and end life this way, as a microscopic bit of food for some other creature. Some, like these mussels, grow up to become plankton feeders themselves. This sea cucumber gleans the water of passing plankton, including larval lobsters. The hermit crab is snatching tiny plants and animals from the blizzard of plankton flying by. Some species remain plankton and bloom when conditions are right. Water temperature, sunlight, nutrients, and oxygenation all create massive concentrations of these tiny animals. For plankton, there's no safety in numbers. The basking shark is the only challenger to the whale shark for the title of largest fish in the sea. This one is about 30 feet long and weighs nearly 3 tons. A super heavyweight, it feeds solely on the smallest creatures in the sea. The open mouth, the size of a jet engine intake, annihilates everything in its path. Floating larval lobsters can be in the wrong place at the wrong time and get taken out by hungry basking sharks. A school of herring is far more dangerous to larval lobsters than any basking shark. Instead of one large mouth, giant schools of Atlantic herring have many small mouths. Herring schools consume masses of plankton and become food for larger predators. These giant bluefin tuna, swimming up to 40 miles an hour, are chasing Atlantic herring in the open sea. The plankton nourish the herring, which in turn sustain the tuna. The Gulf of Maine is like a mixing bowl. The rushing tidal surge creates strong currents and stirs everything up. The seal is a strong swimmer and has no trouble coming and going as it pleases. The life of a Gulf of Maine seal is as good as it gets. After a hard morning of fishing and flirting, it's time for a little nap. White-sided dolphins are at home here too. The abundance of fish makes the Gulf an ideal summer spot for a half a dozen species of dolphins and whales. But for smaller creatures, like larval lobsters, tides and currents can be murderous. They have little or no control over where they go until they grow a little bit. It takes about a month for newly hatched lobsters to gain enough size and strength to swim to the bottom. This is their Superman stage, so called because they swim forward with their claws in front of them, like little superheroes. They've developed into perfect miniature lobsters. And their new home is the bottom of the Gulf of Maine. As they grow, they spend a lot of time hiding and staying out of sight. Indeed, small lobsters like this one virtually disappear into little burrows for 2 or 3 years. The bottom is a treacherous place. It's a minefield of predators. This 2-inch lobster, now about a year old, very carefully picks his way along, looking for places to hide, never exposed for very long. Lobsters grow slowly and can live up to 70 years. Food, salinity, and temperature all affect the lobster's growth rate. So it's hard to guess a lobster's age just by looking at it. It's generally agreed, however, that a 1.5-pound lobster, a menu favorite, is between 6 and 8 years old. Nobody knows for sure how many lobster traps are fishing in the Gulf of Maine. In Maine state waters alone, there are over 2.5 million traps. In 1998, they caught 45.5 million pounds of legal-sized lobsters. Yet somehow, despite all the pressure on lobsters, stocks are still strong. There is no simple explanation why. The Gulf is a complex ecosystem, a collection of dependent relationships among its species. As rugged as the Gulf is, its ecosystem is fragile. It's a place of balances. Tip one end of the scale, and it changes that balance. For example, take starfish, urchins, and kelp. Starfish prey on urchins, eating them, like this eastern basket star, or this smooth sun star. A common sea star is closing in on these urchins. Sort of. When urchins are plentiful, starfish populations grow. When starfish run out of urchins to eat, starfish populations crash. When there are no starfish eating them, urchin populations explode. This is a healthy kelp garden. When urchins explode, they feed on and wipe out kelp beds quickly. With their food gone and starfish on the rise again, urchin populations crash, kelp regrows, and the cycle begins again. Humans now harvest urchins, which checks their destruction of kelp beds. By competing with starfish for urchins, humans have become a member of the marine ecosystem and changed this relationship among marine species. In a similar way, humans may have altered the lobster's world. Life in the Gulf may be easier on lobsters because many of their natural predators have been fished out, tipping the balance in the lobster's favor. Atlantic salmon once ranged this shore and fed on larval lobsters. Now they grow in pens, on salmon ranches, and eat feed pellets. These are halibut. They are the largest flatfish in the Gulf of Maine, growing to 800 pounds. With its hard jaw and sharp teeth, it's a fierce predator on young lobsters. They're so rare in the wild that the surest way to catch halibut nowadays is to raise them in a pen. This is the famous codfish. Mature females lay up to 4 million eggs annually. These once numerous fish pose the biggest threat to smaller, younger lobsters. With fewer cod in the wild to scavenge food, the pressure is off. These bluefin tuna are also in a pen. Tuna often chase herring into fishing weirs or traps and get caught. These are removed live and put into large offshore pens and fattened for the Japanese sushi market. The fishing weir, or trap, has been used here for many centuries, first by the Native Americans who lived here, and then by settlers. The traps themselves are large rooms created by netting. These herring will not be dining on planktonic lobsters ever again. To other species, these seasonal traps give shelter. Lumpfish forage around the nets. It's an excellent place for a squid orgy. They conduct their mating ritual with almost no interference from predators. The netting of the trap helps keep out dogfish, which prey on squid. And skates, which prey on squid eggs. The squid ballet unfolds without interruption. In their excitement, they flash. The male hovers protectively as the female approaches the egg mass. She attaches her egg cases directly to the bottom of the net. Each of these little packets may contain up to 200 eggs. The mating couple is really a menage a squid. Lurking in the background are single males, called sneaker males. Their intention is to break up the happy couples and to forcibly grab the females and mate with them. Eventually, the inside of the trap becomes a squid nursery. The newly hatched larval squid will slip between the meshes of the net to take their chances in the open sea. The lobster is attracted to the fish trap because there are things to eat here. Even an incidental dead squid. The lobster's menu sometimes includes some grisly entrees. Dead seals, for example. Taking on a dead seal is one thing. A live wolffish is quite another. This wolffish is 4 feet long. It eats clams for breakfast and whelks for lunch. It has massive jaws and jagged canine teeth. This is one tough fish. Wolffish eat urchins for dessert. A lobster stands no chance. It's the end of the line for this would-be champion. It's the height of summer. The undersea garden blooms. The ocean sunfish, or mola mola, has drifted into the Gulf on deceptively warm summer seas. If it stays here too long into fall, the cold water may stun it fatally. It can change its swimming attitude from vertical to horizontal. At the warm surface, it often swims on its side, feeding on jellyfish, squid, and fish larvae. A sunfish can grow over 8 feet long and 12 feet from the top of its dorsal to the bottom of its anal fins, and weigh up to a ton. All too quickly, the first Canadian cold fronts wash over the Gulf, ushering in autumn. The dropping ocean temperature signals all living things of the approach of winter. For the lobster, it starts the fall migration to deeper water. Females will carry their eggs to deep water. This one had a rough summer and lost a claw. Our champion has heard the call of the deep, and he's going there. He's undeterred by any distraction, including food and other lobsters. He's taken on another year met every challenge, and won the round. He's the defending, and still, champion of the Gulf of Maine.
Realm of the Lobster is available on DVD for $19.95 plus shipping and handling. To get a copy and more details, visit www.movieodysseys.com.
Next time on Warplane, the arrival of the jet engine transforms aviation, and aircraft push beyond the speed of sound. With Cold War stakes escalating, pilots embrace jet-age combat in Korea. And in Vietnam, the warplane takes on new forms.
That essentially was the birth of the attack helicopter.
Conflict drives technology on Warplane.
Wednesday at 9 p.m.
Expect a masterpiece.
I'm Detective Superintendent Jane Tennyson.
I've always been proud of you. You've always done what's right.
She looks so young.
Watch out! You're drunk.
I'm not drunk.
Jane, were you sober in there?
Helen Mirren returns for the final act.
I know I can find that killer.
Prime Suspect.
And when I do, I will retire.
A Masterpiece Theater.
Sunday at 9 p.m.
90.9 WRCJ plays the world's greatest classical music by day and the finest jazz by night. Now listen to 90.9 online at WRCJ909FM.org. So whether you're across town or across the planet, classical days and jazzy nights are only a click away. Discover 90.9 FM online at WRCJ909FM.org.
Gift shopping has just gotten easier. Visit dptvmedia.org. You'll find many unique products associated with the programs produced by Detroit Public Television. Those programs you've grown to love, like Salute to Vienna, Tommy Fleming, Voice of Hope, the Daniel O'Donnell specials, and many more. Best of all, your order supports Detroit Public TV when you shop at dptvmedia.org.
Antarctica, continent of the penguins. The Emperor, the Chinstrap, the Kings, the Gentoo. There are several species of penguins in Antarctica, and in the winter, some trek up to 60 miles for food and warmth. Only the emperors stay put in temperatures 50 degrees below. How do these birds cope in such extremes? And as the climate changes, what lies ahead for the penguins of Antarctica? This Christmas, nature brings you a glimpse of a genuine wonderland and a national treasure. Yellowstone in winter, 20 below, and pure as the driven snow. We've made them entertainers, and research subjects. For decades, chimpanzees have languished in abject conditions. But 15 chimps are being given another chance. They've been moved to a sanctuary run by Gloria Grow. Tom is the oldest.
He's somewhere in his 40s, and it's pretty obvious by some of the things he does here that he was with humans for a certain part of his life.
At first, neighbors opposed the sanctuary because it housed chimps that had been injected with HIV for research. But in time, that began to change. Pat Ring is a local farmer.
Give me a hand. I wanted no part of the HIV-infected chimps. I thought we were going to be all end up with AIDS. And it's unbelievable the way I've changed with my attitude towards people, not just chimps. Now it's, there's nothing I wouldn't do for Tommy.
For years, permits that would allow Tom and others to live in an open habitat have been denied. Until now. Tom is one of a few chimpanzees being relocated to an outdoor sanctuary.
Oh my God, you look great. I'm just so happy for him. Just look at him. He looks incredible. Oh, Tommy. I would think that would confirm that's a wild-caught chimp.
We know so little about this old chimpanzee, given the name Tom by someone, someplace. All we know is that he spent 30 years in a steel cage, and now he is finally free.
Coming in January. You're watching WTVS Detroit Public Television. For complete program listings, visit us at DetroitPublicTV.org. The following program contains adult subject matter and frank language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the future. PBS Digital.
Tonight's program contains frank descriptions of sexual conduct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Funding for Frontline is provided by the Park Foundation, committed to raising public awareness. Frontline is made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. The Spokesman Review drops a bombshell in the city of Spokane.
Spokane, Washington is being rocked by a city hall scandal.
It was a local story that became a national scandal.
Tonight, the secrets
which are no longer secrets, belong to a public figure.
The Republican mayor of Spokane, Washington, James West, had been caught living a double life.
He's saying that he met the mayor online and they'd gone on a date and engaged in consensual sex. And I'm thinking, holy mackerel.
But how had the deepest secrets of a private man been uncovered?
The newspaper relied on this expert to design the sting.
The intention wasn't to bait anyone. The purpose of our investigation was to search for the truth.
Regardless of what the newspaper thinks, people do have a right to privacy.
Tonight on Frontline, the real story behind a scandal.
He talked to me about living this dual life, the hellishness of this dual life. It was really quite extraordinary.
This is inappropriate and you will be asked to leave.
His coming apart, the demise, it was absolutely Shakespearean. He had come from so high and now he's exiled in disgrace.
Gay people in Spokane were marginalized. When I first came here, it was like, I don't know who would be able to accept me. And so it was probably as far back in the closet as I've been.
For years, to be gay in Spokane, Washington, was to live in the shadows. But then came the internet.
All of a sudden, here's a place where everybody could gather and meet electronically. All of a sudden, Spokane didn't seem to be that isolated.
It can be incredibly encouraging because you realize, wow, I'm not alone. And it's also a little scary because obviously they're just words on the screen. You don't know who's behind the computer that's typing those words.
One night in 2003, a new member signed on to Spokane's most popular gay chat room. He called himself Right By Guy, or more often, Cobra 82.
Talking to this person, I could sense that this was somebody who had been in the military. The name Cobra 82 on there. Now, I'm a history teacher. I know what a Cobra is. It's a helicopter. Cobra 82. This was somebody politically I didn't seem to have anything in common with. And I really was curious why he was talking to me. And I think it was just dead time, filling time until could talk to somebody else.
I would get on, and it just seemed like in the evenings he was always there. He was always there. He was always very private. He told me that he wasn't out. He didn't tell me what position he was in, but that he didn't think he ever would have been able to attain the position he was in if he had been out or if people knew that he was gay. It was like putting together a jigsaw puzzle.
There was someone else interested in Cobra 82's online chats. Bill Moreland, a reporter with Spokane's local paper, the Spokesman Review, was following a tip that the real identity behind Cobra 82 was the town's Republican mayor, Jim West.
My editors were in total disbelief. And they were basically challenging me, how in the heck can we prove this? Jim West came across as this, sheriff deputy Boy Scout leader, very conservative Republican politician, and now we think he might be on gay.com. And so the juxtaposition of those two and the apparent hypocrisy of all that certainly interested me.
The Spokesman Review might never have probed Jim West's private life, but for another very different story involving a shameful secret from Spokane's past. In the 1970s, a wave of child sexual abuse had swept through some of Spokane's most trusted institutions: the Catholic Church, the Sheriff's Department, and the Boy Scouts.
There were people around who, for instance, were in my Boy Scout troop, boys in my Boy Scout troop who had been molested. And there's no question about it. They were. I mean, there were boys that were being taken out on a boat into Lake Coeur d'Alene and being molested. And people knew it was going on and nobody said anything.
We felt this community was haunted in many ways by the ghosts of this abuse scandal from the 70s and 80s involving the church, the Boy Scouts, and the Sheriff's Department of Spokane County.
There's something there. They just don't.
Stephen Smith became editor of the Spokesman Review in the summer of 2002. Disturbed by the paper's failure to cover the scandal when it happened, he encouraged investigative reporter Bill Moreland to seek out the original victims.
We published the first story in June of 2003, and that focused on 3 men who said that they had been sexually abused as young boys by Sheriff's Deputy David Hahn.
David Hahn was the golden boy of the Spokane Sheriff's Department in the late 70s, a decorated Vietnam veteran and Boy Scout troop leader. But in 1981, after being accused of abusing several boys, Hahn shot himself. Moreland tracked down 3 of Hahn's accusers. One of them, a 34-year-old former Boy Scout named Robert Gallagher, said he'd been molested by Hahn for 3 years, starting at the age of 8. In the course of his reporting, Moreland discovered an even more interesting fact. Hahn's close friend in the Sheriff's Department was fellow Boy Scout troop leader and future mayor Jim West.
Sources that I interviewed said that the two were peas in a pod, that they were inseparable. At the Sheriff's Department, they were close partners. They were Boy Scout leaders of the same troop together, and they were seen together socially frequently. The question that's occurring to me is, how could Jim West not know his good friend was sexually molesting boys?
In Moreland's first story, West was a peripheral figure, essentially quoted as saying that he knew nothing about David Hahn's activities. And it was in the days following the publication of that story that Moreland's sources told him that if he potentially dug a little deeper, he'd be able to draw a tighter connection between West and abuse that West might have committed himself.
Okay, I will take care of it for you.
But after more than a year and a half, Moreland had found no one who directly linked West with sexual abuse. The trail might have ended there, but for an unexpected tip. Not about West's activities in the distant past, but in his present as mayor.
Moreland was told by one of his sources that he had met Jim West in an online chat room, had communicated with him over time, had had a date with him, and had engaged in consensual sex. And that was a bit of startling information.
I was on gay.com, and just his name or screen name or whatever popped up and, said hi. And so I just started, talking a little bit.
Moreland's source, a 20-year-old college student, described going on a drive with West, ending in an awkward encounter in a parking lot.
He just kind of sat there and looked at me and then eventually asked if he could kiss me. And then the next part, I don't know who initiated it, how we got to that point, but we went to a darker part of the parking lot and masturbated.
He was very convincing, but he's telling me a story that was just too hard to believe. He's saying that he met the mayor online and they'd gone on a date and engaged in consensual sex. And I'm thinking, holy mackerel.
It's a very important
Smith and Moreland decided there was reason to investigate further.
At this point, we have the young man who's telling us he had sex with the mayor. What if he's using the internet to identify and have sex with underage boys? If he's engaged in this activity, if he's violating the law, if he's abusing children today, we need to know that. If he's not, there's no story.
But before any story could be written, Moreland and Smith had to confirm that Cobra 82 was indeed the mayor. For help, they turned to an outside computer consultant, a veteran of FBI Internet sting operations, later reported to be Marcus Lawson.
The newspaper relied on this expert to design the sting, or what Smith likes to call a ruse.
David Postman covered the story for the Seattle Times.
They didn't tell him who it was they were after. They just said, Here's his online persona. Here's his handle. Tell us who it is.
To unmask West, the paper's consultant proposed going online himself, posing as a member of Gay.com.
Essentially, what I was told was, there is no way we're going to be able to say with absolute certainty that the target of our inquiries is Jim West unless we're able to go into Gay.com as an individual the mayor might want to connect with and draw him out through conversation to the point where he tells us who he is.
The decision to create an identity that was not authentic was a big decision.
Oh, it was a big decision.
Did you consult anybody about that decision? Did you have concerns about making that step?
Well, of course we had concerns about it. I knew I couldn't do it. Our code of ethics prohibit me from pretending to be somebody I'm not, and I'm mindful of those ethics. But we're not prevented from hiring consultants, and what those consultants do to accomplish their jobs, as long as it's legal, you know, I don't have a problem with that.
Significantly, the newspaper and its consultant decided to make their online character 17 years old.
But at this point, there's no evidence that the mayor is courting people under 18. Why create someone under 18? Isn't that baiting him a little bit?
The intention wasn't to bait anyone. The purpose of our investigation was to search for the truth. And we wanted to know, do we have a mayor trolling on the internet for underage boys? And if he's only interested in men who are 18 or older, then that's a different matter.
In the winter of 2005, the newspaper's consultant posted his profile on Gay.com under the screen name Motobrock.
My name is Jim, by the way.
I'm Brock. What do you do? Or can you tell me?
I'd rather not say right now, okay?
Motobrock and Cobra 82 began to chat regularly.
Do your friends know you like guys?
No, definitely not. No one knows. Do people know you are?
No. And please don't tell.
Before long, Motobrock suggested that they meet in person.
Here's a question for you. How do you meet people, especially from something like a chat?
So you're asking me to meet you?
What we're trying to do is elicit behavior which we have every reason to believe has occurred, but not generate new or unusual behavior. And so Motobrock, as you read the transcripts, responds in a legitimately youthful way.
Maybe we could go to a Mariners game this year.
That would be so flippin' awesome.
The two men flirted online, but nothing more. Then the consultant decided to have Motobrock turn 18.
I think you start with 17 because they want to see, again, if the mayor is going to go after a boy as opposed to a man. And it doesn't really happen. And so Motobrock has a birthday, and he's 18, and they're waiting to see. And then talk does turn around to sex.
On Saturday, March 19th, they had a chat, and they end up deciding that they are each going to masturbate while talking to each other online, which is the sort of subject matter I hadn't covered before as a reporter. And it all occurs, and it ends with a big string of M's on the screen.
That was a bit surprising. But is it really a story? If what we're dealing with in the end is a dirty old man chasing young but legal, to use that terminology, sex partners, is that a story? That's arguable. But as it turned out, the story takes a right turn on us.
Happy birthday. Where do I send the present?
Around the time of Motobrock's birthday, Cobra 82 seemed to offer the young man a gift.
What do you want? My autographed football from the 2002 Seahawks? My autographed basketball from the 2003-2004 Zags?
There was also talk of an unpaid City Hall internship, which West, still disguising his identity, said he could arrange for Motobrock through a friend.
Did you think about that internship at your work anymore?
I'm thinking of having a friend set you up at his work. It'll be more interesting.
What kind of job is it? Is it an internship or more like a job?
Internship. It's sort of political or public service.
While we never confirm sexual activity with underage boys, what we find ourselves dealing with is abusive office and official corruption insofar as the mayor appears to have been offering rewards and benefits and even jobs in return for sexual favors.
That's what made the story. The story here is not about the mayor being gay. The story is about public abuse of office.
Some 6 months into their online sting operation, Moreland and Smith decided it was time to expose Cobra 82's identity once and for all.
Our consultant agreed to a meeting. It was a date at a local golf course. The mayor arrived, took 2 buckets of balls, went out to the driving range, waited for 20 minutes for Motobrock. Motobrock didn't arrive.
And you took his picture?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
And that was what you needed?
That's what I needed.
At 6:30 p.m. on May 4th, 2005, a security guard escorted Jim West to the 5th floor conference room in the Spokesman Review offices, where Moreland and a colleague, Karen Dorn Steele, were waiting for him.
It was very stressful. We both felt that it was an important story that the citizens of Spokane needed to hear, and we also knew that it was going to ruin this man's life.
First of all, I want to tell you in the most direct, simplest of terms, what we're going to talk to you about here today is nothing personal. Do you understand that?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's get to it.
I knew that he was dying to know what we were onto, but I don't think he was at all prepared for exactly the information we had for him when he showed up here.
You belong to the website gay.com?
I visited.
Who's Motobrock, Jim?
He's interesting. He's supposedly 18-year-old student at Ferris.
Mm-hmm.
And when Bill asked him, do you want to see these transcripts? He told him we had actual, we'd captured some of these conversations. Do you want to see them? And he said, no. He got very quiet.
I remember seeing a drop of perspiration fall from his chin onto his necktie or his chest.
So you've chatted with Motobrock?
I have.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, you've offered him a City Hall job.
No. Look, I have lots of interns.
Mm-hmm.
Internships. I mentor people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have the transcripts here.
Okay.
Where you're offering him a City Hall job.
It's not a job, it's an internship.
Okay,
it's
well...
unpaid internship, come down, get the application, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Jim, why don't you just come clean with us and tell us what's happened here? Well, you've offered this young man the trappings of your office.
Bill, I haven't offered this young man, or whoever this supposed young man is, the trappings from my office.
In this book are 2 sessions of online sex.
Yeah.
You're not going to talk about it? Why don't you just come clean and tell me that it happened and that that's part of who you are?
Because that's my personal life, and the kid was 18.
And you don't want to talk about it?
No.
The meeting ended. He appeared to me to be a broken man. I felt really sorry that he had carried around this secret all these years and that we were bringing him to grips with the hypocrisy of his own life.
The next morning, the Spokesman Review published its story.
I run every morning, 5 o'clock, brought the paper and threw it down and sort of went, oh my golly, what is this?
In one headline, the paper not only charged the mayor with abusing his office, but with sexually molesting boys in the 1970s. Just before publication, Moreland had finally turned up 2 sources. The main one was Robert Gallagher, the man who had first accused West's friend David Hahn of sexual abuse more than 20 years earlier, was now also accusing West himself. Taken together, the charges were devastating.
Good evening. The Spokesman Review drops a bombshell in the city of Spokane.
The newspaper paints a picture of Mayor Jim West living a double life.
Spokane, Washington is being rocked by a City Hall scandal that's making headlines.
The story was picked up around the country. and Mayor West became a national punchline.
Well, this is a great story. The anti-gay mayor, very conservative
West
anti-gay
was caught
mayor.
by a local newspaper that hired someone to pose as a 17-year-old boy on gay.com.
Thank you very much for...
Stephen Smith of the Spokesman Review became a frequent guest on national TV shows.
Do you believe that he is a sexual predator?
He's been trolling online in a website called gay.com, seeking out young men for sexual liaisons.
West has declined to answer questions.
Mayor West flatly denied the charges of pedophilia, but said very little else about the story.
And did not address allegations he abused his power of office by offering internships.
Then, early one morning, a few days after the scandal hit, the phone rang at Stephen Smith's suburban home.
I answered, and it was Jim West. The call lasted 40-some minutes. What I remember less than the actual comments is just the legitimate anguish in his voice, the emotion, the crying, the sobbing. He talked to me about living this dual life and the hellishness of this dual life. It was really quite extraordinary.
Smith took notes on the conversation. He gave them to Bill Moreland, who published them in the paper, quoting West as saying, "I led a life of hell. I know the rumors have been out there for a long time. It has been hell. Oh God, I don't know what to do."
The pressure that the mayor